So Google MyMaps is one of my favorite Google tools. I use it very frequently, probably create dozens of maps every year, a lot of them for personal travel, but also for work things. Here's an example of a work-related map that I created looking at where reverse angle parking locations are across the country. And I've looked at news articles and other things to collect the information about where this type of parking is. And this is just a good way to visualize this information. Instead of keeping a long list in a table, we can actually see it on a map and continue to add and remove locations as needed. For my personal travel, I also really enjoy creating a My Map to help me understand where places I may want to visit are, and then plan for lodging and even driving directions. So let's actually take a look at how to create a My Map in Google. And so if you Google My Maps, you will find this kind of display as long as you have a Google account. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new map. And we'll start with a blank template here. One of the things we can do is we can change the base map. So you may decide that you want something that's really plain and you really see your points, or you may want to look at the terrain and be able to see differences between water and land and different topographic features, so you can choose one that fits you best. You can also name your map, and I'm going to assume that we're going to have a trip to Florida. Maybe we'll fly into Miami, and the goal is to drive to Key West. So name it Trip to Florida. We can add a description if you want. You can also share this either with individuals, or you can share it publicly. Anybody on the internet can search for it and find it, or you can share it with individuals. So it's up to you how you want to do that, but you can make it either public, private, or where it's kind of semi-private but shared with some individuals, and that's up to you. You can also use multiple layers, and so that's one of the things I'll do is talk about how to create a layer and then how to add points to it. So maybe I'm going to have a layer called places, and in this one I'll put things like the airport we're going to fly into, some of the key places in Key West, maybe some of those other things. And maybe I've asked people about things they enjoyed doing, and maybe they told me some restaurants. So maybe I'll have a layer for restaurants here. And we can also add some driving directions, and we'll see how to do that later. I'm going to start by just searching for some of the things I want to do. So we're going to have the Miami International Airport. So let's assume that's where we're going to fly. So just by searching it, and we've got all that power of Google Maps and Google Search. And I'm just going to add this to the map just so I know when we fly in, it's going to be, that's the place we're going to start on our trip. Now, I was actually still in that restaurants layer, so now this point showed up there instead of in the places. And you can just drag that if you're starting if you're in the wrong layer, you can drag those around. Now, for next time, if I wanted to be specific about where I wanted it to go, if you click in the layer, it will place it there to begin with. I'm going to put as another place the southernmost point, which is in Key West and kind of has a claim as the southernmost point in the continental US. So I'll add that as the point, and we'll assume that those are kind of the two places we're going to go. In terms of restaurants, I'm going to click in this layer, so everything I add will actually come in that layer. I'm going to add some of these restaurants in Key West just to populate this restaurants list. I'm just going to grab a couple of these. And again, as we zoom in, we're going to see these locations. You click them, click add to map, and they're going to show up. So I've got a few in there now. That's probably good enough just to see what's going on. So the thing you may notice, all these points look the same, and maybe we don't want that. Maybe we want them to actually stand out better. So one of the things we can do in restaurants, and you can do this individually or we can do it as a group. And I'm going to start by showing it as a group because I think it's just a little more simple and straightforward. So for the restaurants, I'm going to say instead of individual styles, I want it to be a uniform style. So everything in that layer is going to be the same. And I do want some labels, so I'll use the name as the label so that the name of all these restaurants show up on the map. And I can click on any of these restaurants, and I'm going to edit the style. So click on style, and you can search for them if you want. So if you don't like any of these popular icons, you can come in here and you can search. I'll put in food, and so there are some choices here for food, and maybe I like this icon the best. So I'm going to click OK, and maybe also I'm going to change the color so it's a different color than the places on my map. So now we've got this, and again, you can decide maybe it's too busy, maybe your background's too busy, so maybe I do want something that's a little more simple. And again, now our locations really stand out that we have listed here. And depending on your zoom, sometimes some of the labels come in or out, but those are things that you can see as well. We can change these to the southernmost point if I wanted to use some different style there. Maybe it's a place I want to go visit and take a picture, so I'm going to change that to that icon. You change the color. You can customize this in a lot of ways, and you can make many layers if you want, or just have a few layers. The nice thing about layers is you can turn them on and off if you want to focus only on particular things. So if you, and I usually do this, I usually end up having 30 or 40 points, and so I may only want to focus on the restaurant. So maybe you're talking about where do you want to eat, you did all this research and you put some restaurants in. Okay, I'm going to turn off everything else other than those restaurants. So the using layers to me is a great advantage when you're using MyMaps. Another thing that I mentioned we can do is create actually driving directions in here. So we can say we want to draw a line, and you can do it with multiple modes. You can do biking or walking. We're going to say, how are we going to get from the Miami airport to Key West, and maybe specifically, how do we get to that southernmost point? So I'm going to add driving route, and it's going to show up as a new layer. And what we can do is we can start by clicking a point. So I'm actually going to move back to the airport, zoom out so I can see it. And so I clicked too many times there. So I'm gonna correct this here. So I'm gonna change our point A. I'm gonna delete that one out, and I'm just gonna search again for Miami International Airport. It's one of our points, so it's gonna show up as something that we've already identified. I'm gonna start there. And then the second one, I'm gonna choose as the southernmost. And again, just typing in the first few letters, and it's gonna choose that location. So we're gonna go from A to B. So we're gonna see the route there as well. And it may help you identify points along the way that you're going to go. So you may decide there's a famous fruit stand. Robert is here that's in Homestead. So if somebody recommended that to you, you could add that to your map. And now we've got that there, and we can see how close is our proposed route to that place. And it's right along the route. So it'd be an easy stop if somebody recommended that to you. So again, just a summary of MyMaps. This is the editing frame. We can also preview what it would actually look like when you share it with someone, or if you look at it in this mode. So there aren't as many options here, but you still do have the functionality to turn things on and off. So if you wanted to, maybe the driving directions are cluttering it a little bit, we can turn that off. Maybe we only want to see just the restaurants, we can see that. And of course, we still have the same zoom and moving around functionality that we have in the editing mode. So again, a great tool, very handy. I use it anytime I travel somewhere. I start by reading as many top 10 lists or recommended places, asking people. I start plugging in those locations, and then when I've added all the things I want to see and do, restaurants I may want to eat at, then I start looking for lodging that is close to those locations. So it just helps me planning out from a location perspective where I want to stay in order to visit the things that I may want to see. So I hope this video is helpful for you. Go out there, start making some MyMaps, and I hope you have fun and find some use in this great tool.